want to discuss a book that I've read a long time ago after injuring my back and then finding the significance of training posture. It's called Postural Fitness, Significance and Variances. This book was written in 1960. And why do I think it's more relevant today than any other time in history? Because, and I want you to think about these stats that I present you from this book from 1960, and then looking at these stats, which I haven't looked at yet, but as a PE teacher and a health teacher and just a observer of this world, know that these facts, these statistics that these guys present in the 1960s is way more today. Postural fitness and weakness, physical weakness of the people within the United States, I'm talking from, and should be the young, should be our strongest, they're the weakest all the way up. There's no other time on this planet the United States is physically and have postural distortions to the fact that we are so weak that it's going to hurt our society. We are not at the point right now yet, like Terminator, where we can put out artificial intelligence robots and fight for this country. We need bodies. We're not there yet. And if you're watching what's going on in the world, in my opinion, a lot of other countries realize this fact. This book was written not by your Joe average YouTuber, Instagram model person. This was written by Charles Leroy Lohman, MD, Chief of Orthopedic Hospital, Executive Director, School of Physical Therapy, University of Southern California, consultant from the Rehab and Director of Education, Orthopedic Hospital, and Carl Haven Young, EDD, CCT, FAAA, PMR. He's got a lot of stuff on the back of his last name, meaning that the man knows his shit. Professor of Physical Education, University of California, LA. Notice how he's got a physical education professor and a orthopedic specialist that wrote this book. And so what they found is that, and I'm going to break this book down in each video. So today, what I'm going to do is I'm going to read the foreword. And then each day, what I'm going to do is I'm going to present a new chapter at this. And you're going to see just from this foreword why I'm talking what I'm talking, and why in the description I said the United States right now is ripe for the picking. If you go my kindergartners, I used to do a lesson, because for lesson one was how to move your body, how to run, because I've noticed that even adults had no clue how to run properly, which is the most basic thing that you should be able to do. They didn't know how to run properly. And I would come into my class and I would say, all right, class, I want you to tell me, is this good running form or is this not? Am I doing it right or wrong? Give me the thumbs up or thumbs down, right? And so I would come in there, no. Come in there, swinging my legs and stuff like that, no. And then when I did it right, yes. A 6-year-old kid can look and see if somebody's got a dysfunctional movement or a posture problem. It's obvious. Pay attention to now to somebody jogging down your road and you see them swinging their foot. Forward head, rounded shoulders. It's so prevalent in the gym. And in the gym, these are the strongest people there that we have. I would say, and I'm going to be 70 to 80% of the people in the gym have postural problems and movement dysfunctions. These are the strongest people in the gym, the strongest people the United States have. I remember when I was in the lifeguard stand and I just knew all this stuff because I took the National Academy of Sports Medicine Corrective Exercise Specialist. I took that certification a long time ago before I got my Certified Strength and Conditioning Specialist. So I can tell you a little bit about my background. I posted it in my description so that you know, again, I'm not just some Joe that don't know his shit. And in that lifeguard stand, all the lifeguards say, man, Aaron, you're right. Every time, oh my God, look at that person with we used to call it no acetol. We could see that person sat on their ass because it's so obvious that desk workers lose their ass. It literally flattens out from sitting on it so much. And that's the most important muscle in the body because that's where most of your power comes from and moves your damn legs. As you can see, I'm extremely passionate about this. In fact, to the point that I am now investing my life on trying to help this situation because this epidemic is, you're going to see, it has it's not just your physical health, your mental health, and your spiritual health. So when we look at these young adults and these elementary age students, and already they have type 1 diabetes, and already they're so unfit that I can't even walk them around the soccer field without them sounding like 90-year-old people. This is God's honest truth, especially after the pandemic. My fourth graders, I couldn't even walk them around the soccer field. They were dying from a walk. I used to say, what if your car broke down or something? You're in deep shit. You're dead. You can't even handle it if an emergency happens. And that's probably 80% of the population here in the United States. That's not elementary. Those are the most youngest, healthiest kids that we have on the planet, and they are by far weaker than you could even imagine. I have to take down in 5 years what they call a fitness gram, which is basically like how many push-ups can these kids do at 6? How many can they do? Well, in 5 years, they're so far behind that we have to rewrite the norms. And you know what they want to do? The reason I left my principal sat me down and he said, Eric, we might cut resources, which is music and PE. Are you nuts? The Waldorf School of Education is one of the finest institutes for teaching our young kids. And if you can look it up, by Rudolf Steiner came up with it. And they incorporate movement into their learning. These kids aren't just sitting at a desk and being lectured to. They incorporate movement. That's how important it is in your learning. But we've gone so far behind that. We're not even close with our education system. It's terrible. Some had it right. If I had a kid right now, I'm in New York, I might consider New York because the public education here is one of the top ones. Down in North Carolina, hell no. I'd have them in a charter school or I would be teaching them myself. It's not, and don't get me wrong, there's good teachers, but the amount of money they invest in it and all those things is terrible. They don't see education as important. That's why so many teachers, I've watched the best teachers since I've been in teaching in North Carolina come and go. Because they could come up to New York and make more money working at Tim Hortons, serving coffee. And so many teachers down there are working, they've been there 15 years and they're waiting tables and stuff at the end. It's crazy. Let's get into this. I want you to start seeing the impact of just physical health on how it has on mental and spiritual. You can determine through somebody's posture very simply if they're down in the dumps and they're low, right? Or if they have type A personality and their sternocleidomastoid, their neck muscles are just jacked up because they're constantly stressed out breathing. The posture is everything. Dr. Jordan Peterson talks about the importance of put your shoulders back, put your head back, have confidence. You should be drilling this. I used to do it with my niece and nephew I felt bad because I was on their ass all the time, but it's worth it. When I trained people with cervical neck injuries and stuff that couldn't even eat solid foods because everything that they ate was a milkshake, all the pain and agony that person and the prescriptions that they're painkillers that they're taking when they get in their 80s and 90s because they have kyphosis, it has a huge role on your physical health. There's just hundreds of studies to talk about this, and hundreds of studies to back this up. This is from the 1960s, and they have hundreds of studies to prove this stuff. Where's my glass? It's funny, one of my best friends is Evan, his son. He's my best buddy. When I put my glasses on, he always makes fun of me. He starts laughing. The authors of this book have avoided the conventional cliche that good posture may result from vigorous living and concern with far more than the physical mechanics of posture. Have encompassed the relationships between posture and personality. It has remained for these writers to go beyond the exposition of the evolution of the subject of human posture and its philosophical emergences into the organization of a practical method providing available sources for the proper identification of faulty posture and a regimen of treatment, training, and rehabilitation in which the modalities of physical education play an important and effective role. This in itself is difficult, complex task, but fully cognizant of the need for a reevaluation of existing methods. The authors point out that the conventional regimens of holding and overcontraction of the muscles as primary methods in postural re-education are being re-studied from the standpoint of their promotion of necessary body awareness. Scientific data available in this and many other contributions point to an extensive, indeed alarming prevalence of postural defect and deficiency. From 30 to 40% of all individuals examined for the induction into the armed services since the Korean War were rejected. This is from the 60s. Do you think how many people now are they rejecting? 30 to 40% of all individuals examined for induction into the armed services since the Korean War were rejected. Conservative statistics would seem to indicate that approximately 70% of this group had postural divergency. It had been noted in statistical studies that even physical education and drama students who might be expected to have good posture showed an alarming high incidence of postural deformity. That's exactly what I'm just talking about the people in the gym, the strongest population that we have. I would say the same thing. One has only to observe people in any community to be impressed with the array of incongruities of gait, walking, standing, and sitting. Just the same thing I just talked about. The characteristically lowered heads of the regressed schizophrenics and the haughty elevated heads of the paranoids, examples which can be repeated manyfold, demonstrate the prevalence of postural disorder in pathological cases. A noted pediatrician avers that adults have not overgrown the period of childhood when the important thing was to walk, not how to walk. And as a result, we have well-nigh universal poor walking posture. To this can we be added the tensions and hurry of our highly socialized and industrialized lives, and it's way worse now, wouldn't you agree? Which occupies one attention to an extent that purposive concentration on such natural activities as are associated with locomotion and rest, for example, becomes increasingly difficult. It's just saying that your normal day-to-day activities are even when you're at rest, because your posture, your body's not working efficiently. You're not breathing properly. Just at rest, you're just stressing your body. This is a huge portion of our population, even more now. Ensuing chronic fatigue becomes a recognizable factor, as the authors aver. Segmental troubles can strike catastrophically. I couldn't even imagine how many people have chronic fatigue right now. But you know what they're going to do? They're going to take medication and drink a shit ton of Red Bulls and caffeine, and have no clue that their posture is probably playing a huge role in why they're so damn tired. let alone their eating. We'll get into that. Further, there is confirmation of the need for more precise instruments in the organization of methods for health training, with its many implications for postural education. The new science of labor itself being physical performance, and to a large degree dependent upon efficient posture, is taking cognizance of the prevalence of faulty body mechanics as a factor affecting economic production. And I'm going to stop right here. I should probably stop this video because the United States, most people in the world have an attention span of a circus monkey. And so if you make a video longer than 5 minutes, you've lost them already. And they don't want to even check it out. Let's go into it. The people that have a little bit more hold of their mental faculties. Now that need for such a contribution as is evident, the next problem pertains to the provision of scientific means. What is required in specific method? The authors take a broad and intensive look at this problem and gain a perspective which is able to relate such progressive concepts of habilitation, rehabilitation, education, and re-education to the treatment aims prescribed by the physician. We need to start working with the physician. The physician hardly is not, and occupational therapists and physical therapists have very little to do with our education system. Concern is expressed for the quality and extent of teachers' training, which equips them to serve in this newly developing paramedical area. And still to this day, there is zero. They find that even the nurses in education have no clue about this stuff, and their posture and their weight, they're probably, I've seen them, they're unhealthy themselves to begin with. They find that exercise modalities must be far more specific than sports and games for recreation. Here's where I had trouble. All they do is teach you in the colleges about having these kids learn about how to play basketball properly and no, you start with the fundamentals and they can pick that up. Wasting your time and energy on this stuff. This should be the basics. They should be at least getting their basic foundational stuff in the education stuff, instead of wasting time and energy on how to kick a soccer ball. That should be done by the coach. And yes, how to kick properly should be done by physical education. But way before that, should be able to how to move your body from here to there properly and work on your posture, your strength, and that stuff before that. Since most of these they naturally look to the physician for the criteria and standards for such specialized training required. Makes sense. Paramedical disciplines represented by occupational therapists and physical therapists and nurses, all the stuff I just hit on, are being augmented by new professional groups, such as the corrective therapists, who in addition to the physical education and education background have specialized instruction in medical subjects and a rich clinical experience gained in a hospital setting. We need to combine these. Since most of these paramedical personnel work in hospitals rather than schools, however, there is a great dearth of individuals trained, you can tell this is from the 60s, right? Individuals trained in the necessary technical skills for schools where need for postural training in both its preventive and corrective aspects is so evident. And they should be doing it in the hospitals as well. There's equally a very great need for such provision of specific and highly specialized subject matter for such instruction, which, as the authors point out, must go far beyond the principles of adaptive physical education, oriented primarily to the social aims and values. To ensure the educational application of anatomical principles, it is necessary for the educator to gain more than didactic instruction. He needs to secure experience in a clinical setting. Amen. Experience which is needed to see that what postural stuff is leading to, the injuries, and get to that point. A general introduction to anatomy in relationship to weight bearing and the movement function of the muscles and neural mechanism associated with posture needs to be complemented by clinical experience to avoid the errors which can so easily creep into the situation when the physical educator overstresses uncritical physical conditioning as a primary approach to postural training. Such procedures must take into consideration the variations in type, skeletal, physiological, neurological, and mental, and must be fitted into a concept of postural fitness, which includes, in addition to physical health, neurological functions, physiological health, and emotional well-being. All connected. It is this spectrum of an all detriment of health that will give a rational outlook for a professional approach to the dual problem of therapy and education. According to social scientists, any progressive innovation in the forward march of health services depends to a great extent upon its understanding and acceptance by the man on the street. An effective medical regimen is not enough without public education. Happily, the authors have put into practice this fundamental principle, and we'll get into it. They have provided not only medically validated specific procedures through formal therapeutic exercises and modifications of informal sport activities, but have also made an attempt to persuade individuals concerned, including parents and school administrators, to take the required remedial action. A well-organized scientific study of physiological actions and anatomical structures with graduated exercises is elevated to the perspective of a philosophical presentation in a broad yet intensive approach which extends far beyond the mechanics of the problem. In a style lively, interesting, and richly personalized by the deep interest and dedication of the authors, the reader will find real substance, which will stimulate him to do something about a problem which contains both a promise and a threat. The aim is to motivate the individual to attain this enrichment, not only of his organic functioning, but of the democratic way of life. Let alone just individually, this is going to have a massive effect to society. It makes sense, right? We're only as strong as the individual. Where was I? This development leads to a larger plans of action and understanding as the community, through various approaches, attains greater segmental consciousness with its strengthening associations of dignity and pride. The citizen must realize that good posture is everybody's business. Everybody's business. And there is even more to the problem than its aesthetic aspects. The concept of a significant relationship of segmental alignment to social stability and behavior orderliness, while still at the level of theory, is well within the imagination of the man on the street and the progressive outlook of the social scientist. The visualization of the approach to this problem as a communal attack seems well taken. One must give recognition and respect to the dominant role of the physician in all medical matters. Just, however, as one accepts a totalistic concept of exercise in the sense that no single movement is considered isolated but a member of the motor community interacting with others, one accepts the concept of a team composed of medical, paramedical, educational, and community personnel working together, with the strongest cohesive force of this union being the patient conceived as a doer as well as a receiver. This principle, though well accepted, requires a realistic viewpoint for its execution. Clear guidelines have been presented for the role of various team members to ensure that the job will be done when and where is needed, and that these people in the various categories are properly trained with both medical and educational equipment for the task. The importance of giving not only responsibility, but a sense of importance to the individual team member and fostering his feeling of individuality and sense of personal accomplishment is recognized as an essential of success. As successful human engineering as applied to medicine and education as well as industry. The contribution is vitalized further by progressive concepts of rehabilitation which conceive the problem as a social movement in which the potentials of the well become active factors in restoration of the unwell, postural fitness being a segment of this relationship. Sensitive to the motivational needs of people in an industrialized culture, ways are sought to motivate the individual to do something about his postural divergency. Oh, I just have rounded shoulders and I can't. Oh, I'm just always been tight and I'm not gonna. You know the excuses, right? The broad suggestion is to work with, not on or for the person being treated, so as to build up the constructive elements of independence. The word to build up the word with looms large in its perspective. One must work with not only the patient but also his fellow workers and the community. It seems that only in this way can the dynamics of education and through the procedures of medicine stimulate the participation of citizens and motivate the individual being treated. Thus, he is motivated by these multilateral forces to follow the fundamental principle of helping himself. The upright posture as a reality and aim dignifies the individual and the efforts to attain it. And after this, guys, that's the foreword. We'll get into some more stats that'll blow your mind and why these dysfunctions are a result of poor nutrition, poor movement, lack of movement, texting, text neck that you see. This is a massive problem, massive. And if we don't fix it, we are in deep shit. And I think that other world powers realize that we are the weakest we've ever been, ever. And you can see this too. Our army has dropped its standards because people can't even hit those anymore, and they want it to be all inclusive. And war is war. You need to slap that slap of reality across the face of some people. And this is a slap of reality. Wait till I get into some of these numbers and stuff. This is from the 1960s, and they go on to state about and I'm being very, very good about this, that 50 to 40% of people in World War II couldn't even pass the stuff because they were so weak and had postural problems. I can't even imagine what it is now today. I'm going to look those stats up. But we'll get into this, guys. This is hugely important. If you notice that, I guarantee most of them are like this because they're sitting at their desk and they're texting all the time, and they're on the computer, and they're gaming. It's got so many problems. You're pinching the nerves that affect, do you notice that, not just the nerves, all those nerves in the spine don't just connect to your muscles, they connect to your internal organs, your heart, your liver, your kidneys. And so if those are getting damaged, they're having an effect on your heart, your liver, your kidneys, your endocrine system that deposits its hormones that affect your mood, your depression, your anxiety, your stress. Who gives a shit if the kid is like, we need to educate them. It's that important because they're only going to have problems later on. They're only going to have problems later on. And with that being said, guys, check this book out. Any a fitness person, coach, trainer, physician, let alone doctors don't know shit. They don't know their asses from the hole of ground. When you're sitting with a doctor and he's overweight and you can tell that he's unhealthy, good God, right? Don't get me started. We'll get deeper into this book, guys. And I got another book that I've been reading. It's called The End of Mental Health Illnesses by Dr. Amen. Blow your mind, right? And he talks about this too. Body, mind, spirit. You got to train all three. Namaste.